you know, not only seen but captured, of course, the kinds of things that you just do want to capture in terms of photography. So Shep Herman is on his way, taking his photography hobby seriously and applying it to the Iditarod race.
Rick Armstrong.
So that brings up Rick Armstrong now from Two Rivers.
Third attempt in the race.
And this is Iditarod number 3 for Rick.
Rick finished the 84 race.
He has finished both in 84 and 85.
The 85 race in 39th place.
So that's not bad, 2 for 2. Bobby Lee has joined us again at our broadcast table. You had a chance to go down into the holding area and talk with some of the mushers. What kinds of things did you find out?
People seem to be pretty actually content with the trail situation, with what's going on. The only people that expressed any concern about the weather was like Jerry Austin, whose dogs live over on the coast where they get quite a cool chill factor and whatnot. For the most part, everybody is pretty excited, looking pretty good. They feel pretty good about this year's start. I heard a lot of comments that this was probably the best organized start for the Iditarod Trail Committee. So quite a good job for them.
Excellent. Nice to hear. Very nice to hear. Interesting point about Austin. We were talking about some of the other mushers who are on the coast. Mushers like Sonny Russo, of course, from Kotzebue, who train up there. Joe Garney, of course, his dog's familiar with that part of the country, or part of the state, rather, having lived in Teller. And their feeling is that their dogs do better on the coast, that they're used to the weather. Austin, on the other hand, says that's not true. He says with his team, it's like his team realizes that where they are, and it's like, oh, here we are again, back in this kind of weather. And they have a tendency not to put out quite as well for them.
Yeah, I think Jerry might have a slight disadvantage, though. He lives at St. Michael's, not far from Unaclete, and sometimes considers Unaclete more or less the hometown. So when his dogs get to Unaclete and are leaving it, they're going away from home again. And that must be a kind of a disadvantage to his dog team, whereas many of the other ones, like Sonny told me, when his dogs smell that sea air, they know they're getting closer to Kotzebue, and they like it, and his dogs pick up.
That's Rick Armstrong making his way down 4th Avenue, and of course he'll be hitting the coast in what, maybe 9-10 days if all things go right?
Yeah, to hitting the coast time. I noticed riding a second sled was Dr. Mark May, Joe May's son, a previous winner of this race. And, now a veterinarian and back in dogs again.
Mark Williams going to the line now. And Mark is from Willow.
John Dolan, who is the start coordinator.
3 more mushers will follow Mark, and then we'll have all 73 out and on their way to Nome. And headed to Eagle River, and then, of course, on to Wasilla.
One of the cleanest operations I think we've ever had. Mark Williams, 42.
Well, I can imagine, just like anything else associated with this race, Bobby, the logistics of organizing a start must be astronomical.
Yes, it's amazing to try and get 75 dog trucks in this small area in order, all the dogs hooked up, and yet to where everyone can get back out to be heading to Eagle River to pick up these teams as they come in. The first teams are probably getting into Eagle River about now, if they haven't already arrived. So the logistics are pretty complex, and the Iditarod Trail Committee has done a great job of organizing this start. John Dolan, the start coordinator, deserves a lot of credit for this.
Eagle River, approximately 12 miles or so down the trail.
Yeah, that's what they say. By road, it's 12 miles, but by actual trail miles, we always figure it's closer to 18 miles.
Mark Williams, 42 years old. Just call him a traditional kind of guy. That's the way he refers to himself. I don't know how many traditional guys race the Iditarod, but nonetheless.
I think they all consider themselves traditional, traditionally Alaskans at any rate.
Traditionally Alaskan, well put. Little delayed start there for Mark's team, but he's got them on track now.
I noticed at the banquet Mark was given quite a bit of credit and thanks to his family, and that is one thing about this sport. It does involve the whole family, and it really gives them plenty to do throughout the winter in preparing for this race.
Well, Mark came to Alaska from Michigan back in 1978, so I think we've got him hooked. Another one who's here to stay. All right, Jim Cantor now from Chugiak. And Jim's coming to the line wearing a necktie. How about that? Well, we've seen shorts. We've We've seen a Batman costume, and now we see a necktie.
He not only has the necktie, he has the whole suit covered by his race bib.
He does. All right, you're absolutely right. I thought it was just a dark parka, but you're right.
I'd be willing to bet, though, that's not his best suit.
Probably not his best suit, and it definitely won't be by the time he gets to Eagle River.
We've seen a lot of imagination in this race. I like it.
I see up at the front of Jim's dog team is Eddie Dayton, a sprint driver, well known in the sprint circle. A neighbor of Charlie Champagne's drives a lot of that same breed of dogs, and I recognize some of those dogs in that team is from that. Jim might be kind of a little hidden out here. He might have a little faster team than a lot of people expect.
Jim Cantor's sponsors include the law firm of Cole.
15.
Well, for Jim, the Iditarod has just given him the perfect excuse, if you will, for spending more money on his dogs.
And several others.
It can work in your favor, no question.
No doubt about it.
3, 2, 1, go.
And he's off.
31 years old, and a three-piece suit is what he's wearing.
18 dogs, all with tight tug lines. Jim's on the way.
What if he's got suspenders on under that jacket?
Number 75 starting position number.
March 14th is his birthday, so here's another guy who may be celebrating on the trail with his dog team.
Most likely will be.
They went out
Jim Cantor.
search and rescue looking for him, and he mushed right
Malcolm
down the
Vance will be next now.
What are you guys doing? Malcolm Vance from McCarthy, Alaska.
Malcolm comes from McCarthy, Alaska, and now, of course, we are at the very end of the pack, the final two mushers, and again, we talked about how position really, well, it has some effect, but not a major effect by any means on the race. But it does mean some problems if you're a little further back. And now here are the two guys who have got probably more problems in than anybody based on that.
Most likely, Malcolm's had more than his share of problems. You know, he was the musher that got lost on the way to Nome to make his feed drops earlier in the month. He was missing for about a week, short on dog food for about the last 3 days of it. So it's been quite an epic ordeal for him getting ready for this race. He said after that, though, he felt no matter what happened down here on the start in his first couple of the days, it was going to be nothing as compared to what he'd already been through.
Well, it is indeed a long day for the mushers, as we have alluded to, of course, by the time they pack their dog teams up, get them down here on the avenue, unpack them, load them up again, unload them in Eagle River and Wasilla, and then they finally get out onto the trail.
Right, I'm sure that's what most of these people are waiting for, is just hopefully to nurse their dog teams all the way to the restart, be finished with loading in trucks. Interestingly enough, most of these guys express fear of something happening while they're in the truck between Eagle River and Wasilla. It's not their dog teams they're worried about or driving through these crowds or any of that. It's what's going to happen possibly in the truck ride on the way out to the restart that concerns them the most.
Malcolm Vance on his way. He fishes in Bristol Bay during the summer, and he trains his dog teams in Shishmaref, which of course is the area of another famous Iditarod musher, none other than Herbie the Yakpak.
Herbie the Cannonball Nayakpak. Yep.
Katil Rattan.
Here's Katil Rattan now from Kaktovik, native of Norway. So again, another country being represented here.
Right. Keitel actually has been in Alaska for a number of years. He's married to a lady from up on the coast. He's trained exclusively up there. He ran the Yukon Quest last year.
Competed in the Yukon Quest. He finished 21st. Katil operates the only long-distance racing kennel in the North Slope Borough.
He's also the last one to start this race.
That's right. Okay, we should mention that. That's true. He is our last musher out today.
He's about ready. He's also driving one of the smaller teams in the race, I see.
So
looks like 15 dogs for Katil, from what I can tell.
Well, now we
in
said...
a sled, but it looks like there's some in... what's in the sled? He has a dog in the sled. He's must be planning on carrying one to start with there.
That's interesting. Again, I assume just to slow the sled down.
Possibly to slow the sled down. Could be a number of reasons for it.
Well, we said, of course, that they can start with 20.
Right.
Now, they can drop dogs and do drop dogs, of course, along the way, depending upon how the race progresses and the toll that it takes on the dogs. Is there a certain amount that they must have when they cross the finish line?
Right. You have to have a minimum of 5 dogs on the tow line at all times.
You'll get a lot weeks then.
These guys spend a lot of time caring for their dogs for that reason.
This fellow for showing up, because if he hadn't
Although
shown
it's
up,
not to your advantage to take a dog that might be a little tired or might be a little bit weaker than the other dogs along the way.
departure of this team, I did let
That's why you'll see them gradually drop off dogs as they go along. At the first indication of a dog becoming tired or possibly approaching his own personal limit, they drop the dogs off and leave them. Another reason why they start with so many dogs, so they can do that. It's pretty much felt that if you can end up with 8 dogs when you get, from Shack Tulik on, you can get to the finish line okay with 8 good ones. So if there's any question about dogs along the way, rather than take a dog that is possibly injured or will fatigue, they'll leave them behind.
Come down here downtown
So
Anchorage.
just about the time you start closing in on the coast then, is what you're saying.
Right, right. Usually from Shack Tulik to Koyak's flat trail, out 60 miles, 58 miles across the ice, and so at that point in the race, the large team really doesn't have that much of a bearing.
Well, the trail does flatten out too. Of course, Rainy Pass, of course, a great elevation there that they have to work their way through. But after that,
Right, after that, although there's quite a few hills actually between Iditarod and Shagaluk is rolling hills along the Yukon. And then actually up the Yukon is barely climbing all the way, but you would never notice it as a hill. It seems as flat as this tabletop here. That's all flat. And then there's quite a few hills actually between White Mountain and the finish line. You're going up and down a bit. But they're not long hills, and it seems like the downslope is further than the upslope in that stretch of the
always, right?
Yeah.
All right, as you watch Katil Ratan make his way down 4th Avenue, the final musher to head out on the way to Nome here as the ceremonial start on 4th Avenue in downtown Anchorage has now been completed. As we said, Eagle River is the first stop, and then it's on to Wasilla for the restart. That will be coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And once again, we will be bringing you live coverage of the restart from Wasilla at 3 today. So we certainly hope that you'll join us for that. We thank you for joining us this morning for the start here from 4th Avenue. And of course, we will continue with our exclusive coverage of the Iditarod starts with the restart at 3. For Rich Levine and Bobby Lee, I'm Ken Garland saying thank you for being with us. Have a good afternoon, and we'll see you at 3 o'clock with the restart.
stainless steel skinning knife made in Finland. Anyone knows what
Did you happen to notice our cameraman in the second?
Of ABC Sports.